Well, the reason that people can't see anything is because everybody is in what they call a 5 sense prison. They're perceiving all reality around them utilizing just 5 senses. What they can see, touch, taste, smell, and hear. The problem is we actually have, and we were initially given 6 senses. Just like the movie title with Bruce Willis back in the day, Sixth Sense. And, all these movies are telling you stuff. They're using allegories. But anyway, we have 6 senses. Or at least we were initially born with 6 senses. But again, everybody's just perceiving reality with their 5 senses now. And they'll never figure it out. But in a lot of cultures, like if you go to India, where their primary religion is Hinduism, the people are running around and they've got a dot on their forehead. And they tell them that represents their third eye. And that they need to learn to see with their third eye. And once they do, they'll reach the stage of enlightenment. And then they'll reach nirvana. And yada yada. And then you hear people, they'll talk about throughout the world, your third eye, your third eye, your third eye. You got to see with your third eye to figure out what's going on and to be able to see the truth. Well, all that's actually true, but the third eye is very simple to understand what it really is. It's just your mind. Your mind is actually referred to as the mind's eye. It's an eye. It's called the mind's eye, and also called the third eye. And if you can see with your mind, that means you can grasp things. And if you can grasp things, then that means you have insight. And to have insight means you have inner sight. Because you can see with the mind, you can grasp. That means you're looking at things and you're getting a sense of what you're actually seeing. You're hearing things and you're getting a sense of what you're actually hearing. If you remember the Messiah, when he came down here, he said, those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, listen, and he taught. That's the problem. And it even talked about in the scripture, said that this generation, though they will be seeing, will not see. And though they will hear, they will not hear. So, we see but don't see. And we hear but don't hear. And what we're not seeing is actually the truth. Because the truth is actually hidden in plain sight. And the reason, and we have an enemy down here, we're going to get into that in a minute, a very serious enemy. But this enemy has hidden everything right in front of us. And the reason is because that's always the best hiding place in the world, is right in front of you. I mean, if you're talking to somebody and he has his hand behind his back, and he has the other hand right in front of you the whole conversation, most of the time, you're never going to be suspicious or even look too much at the hand is right in front of you. You might get suspicious at the hand behind his back. And the power down here, they know that. So they hide everything right out in the open. But the trick is they train everyone to perceive everything wrong. So though the truth is right in front of you, you don't perceive it, you don't grasp it, you can't connect the dots, you can't figure out what it all means. So now what I'm going to do, let's talk about religion. Because down here on our planet you have roughly 7.7 billion people, and you've got people all over the world with all these different belief systems. I mean, you have 1.7 billion Muslims, they have this belief system. And you have 1.3 billion Catholics, they have this belief system. And you have 700 million Protestants with this belief system. And then you have the Hindus with this belief system. And then Taoism. And then Buddhism. I mean, now, obviously everybody isn't right. But everybody believes they're right. But, there's only one truth. They're peddling this new age concept down here that whatever you believe, that's reality. Everybody just believe whatever you want to believe, and that's what's real. And honestly, that's completely ridiculous. No human has ever manifested their own reality. I mean, you can't reconstruct the universe you're born into. So, like I said, I pick up a rock and I drop that rock the same way every time. It's going to fall the exact same way every single time, because there's fixed laws in place. I'm the creation, not the creator. So I can't manifest my own reality. I can't make that rock go anywhere else. It's going to fall the same way every time. So, now, the best thing I can do is just try to figure out what I'm born into, figure out what's real. And, I've learned dealing with people over the years that you've pretty much got people falling in one or two categories. You have people that they're in it to be right. That's their whole goal. They have their own agenda, and their whole goal is to be right. About whatever they believe, they just want to be right at all costs. They'll argue, they'll debate, everything. Then you have the other type of person. They're not in it to be right. They're in it to actually know what is right. Their whole goal is, hey, I'm born into something. Let me figure this out. Let me figure out what's going on. And those people usually, honestly, they make leaps and bounds. And, if they're hungry for the truth, they seek it out. And when they find the truth, they accept the truth for what they find. So my goal, I guess, here is, I'll just try to show people actually what's right in front of them. And it's so much to explain, but I'm going to do it little by little and give tidbits, and so people can digest this. So, I could sit here and I could go through religions in the world, and I could refute this religion and show all the discrepancies and everything, but what I usually do when I talk to people is, instead of me trying to refute things, which is contentious, I just show people the truth over and over. I just overwhelm people with the truth, and all the other stuff just falls away. And so what I'll do is I'll do the same thing here. I'll just start showing people, because again, everything's hidden in plain sight. But as the old saying goes, and again, we can't see, but there's a saying, it's once your eyes are open, there's no going back. So once you can actually see all the things that are hidden in front of you, you can't turn that off. You can't unknow what you know. So, like I said, I'll just try to start laying this stuff out. So, the Bible, and there's no book like it on the planet, but I'm just going to exert everything as fact and then just lay it out. The Bible's the truth. Hands down, no opinion, it's 100% the truth. And down the road, I'll get into how I know what I know, but for now, I'll just say exert this as being fact. The Bible's 100% true. And the Bible tells you that Satan is in control of the world. It doesn't tell you God's in control of the world, which, if you look around, that makes a lot of sense, because look at the world. They're turning everything into a sewer. So we can look around and tell something's seriously wrong down here. This is not a paradise. So God's not running the show. He's the Almighty. He can do whatever he wants, but he's obviously, things aren't good right now. But the Bible, again, it says this. Now, this isn't taught in any of the churches. Very few churches actually teach this, because the evil that runs our world, they've subverted the truth throughout the churches. They've took over the churches. And this has been done well before most of us were even born. So, but if you pick up the Bible and you look at it, this is a central message throughout the Bible, that Satan's running the world. Ever since Adam and Eve chose to follow him at the beginning and listen to him over God and disobey God. And so if you turn around and when the Messiah came down here, if you read Luke chapter 4, when the Messiah came down here, it says that Satan took him up on a high place and showed him all the kingdoms of the world. And it means governments, the same kingdoms, governments. He showed him all the kingdoms of the world, and he said, all this has been given into my hand. Now, Satan didn't say he took it by his power or anything. He just said, all this has been handed over to me. All of this has been given into my hand. And he said, I give it to whomever I wish. And then he told the Messiah, he said, if you bow down to me, I will give you all you see. And the Messiah, he didn't argue. He didn't say, "Oh, you can't offer me this because it's not under your power." He knew it was under his power. He just said he wasn't going to bow down to him. And if you read 1 John 5:19, it says that we know that we originate with God, but the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one. So it says we know where we originate with God, but the whole world's lying in the power of the wicked one. And it even refers to Satan, the ruler of this world, as the god of this world. If you read 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4, it says, among whom the god of this system of things has blinded the minds of the unbelievers. And that's what Satan's did. He's blinded the minds. So that's why people don't, their mind's eye, they don't have insight, inner sight, because he's blinded everybody's mind. So now, and then if you read Revelations chapter 12, verse 7, it says, so down the great dragon was hurled, the original serpent, the one called Devil and Satan, who is misleading the entire inhabited earth. He was hurled down to the earth, and his angels were hurled down with him. So this is basically 101, the Satan's rule in the world. Now, to most people, the idea of Satan, he's mythical. He's like a personification of evil, an ideology at best. And if you tell people that Satan's running the world, most people will laugh. And because obviously if he's ruling the world, like how? I mean, I've never seen him. I mean, if the United States, I see the president and politicians in control. And this country, they have prime ministers. In this country, the dictator's in charge. And so how can something called Satan be in charge of the world? And that's actually quite easy. The way they do everything, the way he's ruled since the very beginning, is he has secret societies. So to give you an understanding, like in the United States alone, we're said to have one of the strongest militaries in the world. And I think the personnel, if you take the Army and Navy and Marines and Air Force and Coast Guard and you combined all the personnel, I think it's something like 1.4 million or something around there. And I mean, that's a huge army, 1.4 million people. And it's said to be one of the most powerful in the world. Now, that's in the United States, though. That's not the most powerful army, or to say that's not the largest army. The largest army is actually Freemasons. In the United States alone, there's 2 million of them. So, and like I said, that's humongous. 2 million people all united. And I mean, what are these people doing? So, and if you get deep into this, and like I said, I'll provide you all kinds of stuff, but if you get deep into their world and learn a lot about it, I mean, this is not a maybe about it. They worship Satan, hands down, at the top. The bottom guys brought in, they don't know anything. They're all tricked and manipulated. It's a very deceptive world, but as you get higher and higher and higher degrees, you learn really quick that, hey, we worship Satan at the very top. So, but again, that's a whole thing in itself. But he has secret societies all through the world. It's actually estimated 1% of the world is actually in secret societies. So, and like I said, that whole world is an in-depth conversation in itself. But the way I'll tell you this secret societies operate is they operate on a pyramid scheme. They consider every single, and this is how they've been doing this for 6,000 years. This is how everything's been ruled and structured down here. But every single organization in the world is considered a pyramid. Like if you own, if there's a huge business over here, like the McDonald's Corporation, they look at McDonald's Corporation as just a pyramid. And the prison system over here, the whole prison system is just a pyramid. And every organization, every structure is just a pyramid. So the way they do it is, let's give, for instance, let's say that I want to control a prison from the outside. Well, I don't need to control all the staff members and all the inmates in that prison to have control of that prison. No, I just need to control the one who controls all the staff members and all the inmates, the warden. So he sits at the top of that prison, at the top of that pyramid, which is the prison. The prison is considered a pyramid, so he sits at the top. So if I can control him, I can control the whole body, the whole structure underneath him. So this is how the few rule the many. And same concept, let's say I want to control a media company because I don't want any information about me or my network or my operations ever getting out to the general public, which they call the masses. So I don't need to control all the journalists and all the staff members at that media company. No, I just need to control the ones who control all the staff members and all the journalists, which would be the president and the chief editor, because nothing can get published or broadcast without the chief editor. So I just need to control the top guys. So again, that's how they do everything. And they consider every organization in the world a pyramid, and it's millions and millions and millions of pyramids inside one master pyramid. And that master pyramid is what you see symbolically on the back of your dollar bill. And if you look at the top, this all-seeing eye, this is Satan. But that's in a whole different conversation itself. But again, that's how they've ruled since the very beginning. This is why if you go all over the world, you've always seen pyramids. If you go down to the South America, you have Aztecs and the Mayans, and if you go to Egypt, you'll see all these pyramids all over the world. And all these nations built these pyramids to their gods, which was always Satan and demons. But that's again a different conversation itself. But again, this is just symbolically paying homage to how they rule. And so what they do, like again, everything I said is hidden in plain sight. And now a lot of stuff that's again hidden in plain sight is hidden there for multiple reasons. One, again, their operations, they hide a lot of that in plain sight, but they also, again, hide things in plain sight to mock us. And the evil that runs our world, the reason they do this is because, it's like putting somebody in an escape room and everything around them, they're trying to get out, and they're looking for the key to get out of this room. And imagine the whole room is booby trapped. And everything that they're grabbing is hurting them, and they're trying everything to figure out how to get out. And imagine you're very wicked and you built this escape room. Well, you would actually put the key where? You'd put the key as something so simple, and maybe the shirt that the guy's actually wearing. And the whole time, he's going crazy and he's hurting himself, and let's say you got cameras in there and you're watching it. And the whole time, like I said, he's trying everything he can. He's stressed out, but the key to the room has been hidden in plain sight the whole time. It's his shirt. The last thing he'd ever think of, because he's going to lift every rock and he's going to check every single thing, but he's never going to think of that it could be something so simple as his shirt. So this is one of the evil things they do, is they put the truth right in front of us. They know that they have confused us and brainwashed us. And they know that we don't know if we're coming or going half the time. And so the name of the game for them is, like I said, to put the truth right in front of us. And then laugh at the fact that we kill ourselves trying to figure things out. And it's literally laid out in front of us the whole time. So the way they built this whole system, this satanic world we live in, is they built it like a giant puzzle. And every single thing, everything around you is a clue. And this is because we're not seeing these clues. This is why they say you're clueless, or you're without a clue, because everything around you is a clue. So I'm going to show you just one thing today, and like I said, I'm going to try to make take some time out to try to explain as much of this as I can going forward. But I'll just show you one part, just this something simple. And we're in a war right now, so everything the good did, or everything the good does, because this is a celestial war. This is called a star war. Celestials, this is a star war. All the angels are called stars. They're called morning stars. So we're in a Star Wars right now. But everything the good does, the evil emulates it. Just like it actually talks about in the scripture, it actually says that Satan has set himself up to resemble the Most High. So that's his whole game, because, as they say, imitation is the highest form of flattery. So he emulates God. He wants to be like God. So when the Messiah came down here, it says that, this Messiah, he was walking next to the Sea of Galilee, and there was two brothers, they were fishermen, and he turned around and he told them, throw down your nets and follow me, and I will teach you how to catch men alive. So, these brothers, this is the first were two, and then there was two more right after that. But the first two he told this to, he said, and they threw down their net and they followed him. And he turned around later and they became his disciples and then his apostles. Well, the enemy that rules this world, and we're in the kingdom of Satan. And just like Jesus talked about when they accused Jesus of being Satan, they said, you're Beelzebub, you do this in Beelzebub's name. He said, how could I do this? If Satan divides against himself, his kingdom will fall. This is very much Satan's kingdom down here. So, anyway, and what Satan did is he turns around and he's trying to catch the whole world. And he's built a net around the whole world too. Because just like Jesus told his disciples, he told these men, he said, throw down your net and follow me and I'll make you fishermen of men. And then later, Jesus even used a reference about how the kingdom of heaven is like a net coming down, and talking about on Judgment Day, and how this net will pick up all the fish, and the angels will separate the big fish, the good ones, and they'll throw away the little fish, the garbage. And so it uses the same reference. Now, what Satan has did since Jesus left is he's turned around and again he built a net over the world. He's catching everybody. So, and if you pay attention, I'll just show you how this connects. Okay, so in our lifetime they have rolled out this virtual net, this virtual internet, and the word internet means international net. So it's a net over the whole world. But if you turn around, and I mean, you could look at the story, but I won't get into that right now. But if you pay attention, well before they rolled out this virtual net, everything around you everything else is in the same net. So, like if you turn on the television, what is the channel called? It's called a network. Because remember, Jesus talked about the work you do, and it was all about doing good works. So the evil down here, everything they do is they have their work too, but it's all evil works. So, what is the channel called? It's called a network, news network. All the sports that everybody's watching to keep them real distracted. It's NFL Network. So it's just the same thing. It's all a network. If you turn around and if you pick up every product in the world, what is every product weighed by? It's weighed by its weight. It's net weight. How much does it weigh in this net? Because this symbolic net has covered everything. Everything's being caught in it. If you have a value assigned to you, how much money you have in your pocket, what is it called? It's called your net worth. How much are you worth in the net? So now this virtual net that they have built, let's say that you want to get online into this virtual net. You need a computer. So what's the most popular computer in the world? Now think about that. It's the Apple computer. But think about it. If you turn around and you were to build a piece of machinery like a computer, would the first thought in your mind be, you know what, I'm going to name this a piece of fruit? I mean, probably not. But how did Satan deceive Eve in the very beginning? Well, he got her to bite into the forbidden fruit and to break the one command that God had told them, the one thing God had told them not to do. And and the Satanists down here, and they praise the Apple constantly. What is the logo of the Apple computer? It's an apple with a bite out of it, because that's how we got in this mess in the first place. So, and matter of fact, when you surf the internet, you surf it by speeds of what? Megabytes. They just spell it with a Y instead of an I, so you can't connect the pieces. They call it a degree of separation. They make little subtle changes so you can't connect it. Matter of fact, Apple's headquarters is actually, if you look at it like an aerial view, it's a giant circle, and it's considered a loop. Well, you know, ever since Adam and Eve did what they did, we've been kind of thrown for a loop. We've been stuck in this loop of evil, just going round and round. As Satan's story, his story, always repeats itself. We're just stuck in the same cycle. And if you look at the headquarters, matter of fact, the sign for that location is actually in I think it's First Infinity Loop, or One Infinity Loop. And you know, this symbolic loop, again, we're stuck in it. This whole system is just like got us going round and round, and it's all predatory. And as a matter of fact, if you get caught up in the judicial system and you figure out a way out of, you know, whatever prosecution or whatever you're dealing with, they call it a loophole, because, you know, Satan's system, you found a way out. So it could be a technicality or whatever reason, whatever trick you figure out, it's called a loophole. So because you're getting out of it. But other than that, we're just all thrown for this loop, and we're just in it. And again, infinity loop. They're just hoping we stay in it forever. To go a step farther, as far as the Apple reference, New York City is actually called the Big Apple. And what that really means is that's actually down here, this satanic empire we're in. New York City is actually their capital city. And it's the Big Apple, the big deception. And this city secretly runs everything. And to explain, matter of fact, when John, one of Jesus' apostles, 2,000 years ago, he was exiled on the island of Patmos. And he was given by Jesus all these revelations about things that were going to occur at the very end of this satanic system, prior to Jesus coming back in Judgment Day. And he recorded all these visions in a book in Latin called Apocalypse, because we're very much, it's Apocalypse, and in English it's called Revelations. And things were revealed, Revelations, they were revealed. And if you read Revelation 17:18, it actually says, and the woman whom you saw means the great city that has a kingdom over the kings of the earth. So that actual scripture is saying that there's a city that has a kingdom over all the kings of the world. And again, this is actually New York City. This city has universal dominance, universal sovereignty over the whole world. This is why if you watch old movies, they would show the earth and it was said Universal City Pictures, because this is the city they're referring to. This is their capital city. Now, this is also why New York State is actually called the Empire State, because it actually houses the capital city of their empire. And what they're doing down here is the whole plan is for them to build a global government, a one world order, a new world order they call it. And they want the entire world under one sovereignty, under one government. And so they've been setting up the skeleton system. And that's what the UN was. The UN is actually the skeleton system that they've been setting up. It's going operational right now. As we speak, they're transitioning everything under that, and they're trying to get that completed by 2030 to where the UN has complete dominance over the whole earth. But this is why, like, if you have California, it's a state, and California is part of the United States. And now every country in the world is actually considered a nation state. And all these nation states are incorporated into the United Nations. So it's, a state in California part of the United States. All countries are part of the United Nations. And where did they put the original headquarters for the United Nations? In New York City, because this is their secret capital. So now, what I would suggest is, and for anybody that actually wants to understand the truth about God, again, if you remember in the scriptures, Jesus, because he knows that we're all getting manipulated down here, and he did not say that the majority of people are figuring this out. Actually, he said, broad is the way leading to destruction, and many are finding it, whereas narrow is the gate leading to life, and few are finding it. So he didn't say the majority of people down here are figuring this out. And I mean, you have over 2 billion people professing to be Christians in the world. But he did not say the majority, he did not say a lot of people are getting this right. He actually said a few were figuring this out. That doesn't mean there's not hope for everybody. There's a lot of hope. But right now, there's only few people that are actually securing themselves and figuring out life and figuring out the Christian covenant. So, and this is actually where he said broad is the way leading to destruction. This is why in New York, because everything is symbolic with this evil system. Everything is esoteric. This is why in New York they say you're on Broadway, because Jesus said broad is the way leading to destruction, and many of you are finding it. That's why you have Broadway productions and Broadway video, and if you look at streets in major cities, most of them have Broadway. A lot of them, Adam Street crosses Broadway, because that's how we got in this mess in the first place. We're on the evil way of Broadway. So that's why when Jesus came down here, he said repent. The word repent doesn't actually mean to grieve. It actually means turn around, because everybody's going to Broadway. And he was like, turn around, follow me, I'm the way. He was leading people back to the kingdom of heaven, back to God. So what I would actually suggest, and I'm not saying that everything that they're saying is perfect, not by any means, but, and I will tell you before I even make this recommendation, that a lot of people down here, like you have a group called the Jehovah's Witnesses, and a lot of people hate these people. They've been told they're a cult. You hear every joke you can about them. People believe all kinds of crazy stuff about them. They don't believe in Jesus. They don't believe in this. They don't believe in that. I mean, it's so much stuff being peddled about them. But I would be myself very, very cautious about hating anybody, because if you actually know a lot about the first generation Christians, they were actually put under massive propaganda by the Roman Empire. And if you go back and read letters that even the first generation Christians were writing about just the things that were being said about them, it's just, it would blow your mind. But Jesus said this, and this is something this is a point of contention to think about. He said, he said, no servant is greater than his master. If they hated me, they will hate you. So at the end of the day, I'm really, really conscientious about just hating any group of people just for the sake of hating them, especially if they profess to be Christian. And I do my homework. And what I'll say is, and I'm not saying that the Jehovah's Witnesses are perfect in all their understanding, not by any means. Very few people are getting through all this deception, because it's being thrown at us left and right. So, but I will say, they've been able to get through a lot of it. But the reason I bring them up is because they have a little book called What the Bible Really Teaches. And it's a very, very insightful book. And I mean, again, I'm not saying everything they're saying is perfect, but I'm saying that this book really explains, and they do a good job with it, of explaining the Christian covenant, of what's actually required from each person. What Jesus himself, not what the churches are saying. The churches are saying just say a prayer and you're good. Don't worry about nothing else, you know. But Jesus said something completely different. I mean, and, you know, the churches are telling you there's no rules, there's no law, there's no nothing. And, and I'll tell you that, you know, what Jesus established was a covenant. And every covenant has conditions. Like down here in Satan's world, they do contracts. And a contract is built on mutual distrust. Both parties distrust each other, and they write contracts and penalties and whatnot in case one of them breaks whatever they're doing, whatever they're partnering on. And with God, he does covenants. And Satan's world, they do contracts built on mutual distrust, and God does covenants built on mutual commitment. But the thing that contracts and covenants both have terms and conditions. And when Jesus established the second covenant, it's conditional. And it's very important to understand what those conditions are. Now, what we have to understand is the laws. All right, so if you go into the churches nowadays, like I said, they'll tell you there's no law, Jesus did away with all that, blah, blah, blah. Now, but what did Jesus himself say? So this is what you got to understand. Jesus is our appointed king. He's been anointed as our king. He's been given a king. He has a kingship over everything. He just hasn't stepped into it. He hasn't took possession of the earth, but he has kingship over us. He's going to take that back. Exert that on his second coming. But when he was here, if you know anything about law, okay, in the history, if a king, a sovereign, gives a command, that command becomes law. So when Jesus was here, and he's our appointed king, he was giving commands. And when he issued these commandments, they weren't suggestions, they were commandments. And everything that he commands becomes law. It's a mandate. And he turned around and he said on Judgment Day, he said, many of you on that day are going to come to me. And you're going to say, Lord, Lord. So the word Lord means master. These people are acknowledging him on Judgment Day as master. And he says, you're going to say to me, Lord, Lord, master, master. Didn't I do this in your name? And didn't I do that in your name? And they name wonderful things. They say, didn't we cast out demons in your name? And so these men were doing great things. And he says, on that day, I'm going to say to you, depart from me, O workers of lawlessness, for I never knew you. And now, how could he say that if there's no law? Well, there is law. Everything Jesus commanded is become law. Even Paul referred to it as the law of Christ. So, matter of fact, when Moses went up on Mount Sinai and he came down with all the commandments, the Jews had no misunderstanding that these were laws, and they lived by them. These laws were in place for thousands of years. And Jesus, and matter of fact, Moses even said before he left, he said, there's another one that's coming, and you must listen to this one. And that was Jesus later, and he came and he gave all these commandments. So, what I'd say is I'd recommend, honestly, to read this book. What does the Bible really teach? Now, again, you don't have to agree with the whole thing, but it does really lay out, it does a really exceptional job of illustrating and breaking down a lot of things. And, it's really beneficial for, I think, anybody to read it. We have to get to the point where we let a lot of this contentiousness go. And because Satan's whole game down here is divide and conquer. And he finds every little thing he can to pit people against each other. And, at the end of the day, the goal is just to try to get everything, get this right. And, I don't want to see anybody go down with this system, and I don't want to see anybody deceived. And I want to see people, obviously overcome all this. So, like I said, I'm going to try to explain as much stuff as I can going forward, and hope it helps some people. And but I guess for now, I'll just leave it at that. Well, and I'll say one last thing. I'll say that, like I said, there's puzzles. The whole system is just made up of all these different puzzles and systems, and what I'll do in the future, like I said, is I'll just start exposing them, because it actually tells us in the scripture in Ephesians chapter 5, it actually tells us to expose the darkness. So I'll turn around and I'm just going to start laying stuff out, because if people can start to see this stuff right in front of them, they might not understand every bit of it, but if people start to see it, like I said, I think it might have a huge impact. So, and like I said, I just want to try to help as many people as I can before I take my last breath. So, and again, I know if we go into most churches, because I know at the very top they're controlling all the doctrine that's being taught. Matter of fact, they control the schools that educate these preachers, and so it's not the preachers are bad people at all. It's, again, they're just controlling the doctrine from the top. But if you go into most churches, again, they just tell you need to say this little prayer, and even some churches don't even push baptism as being, it's kind of you can or can't. It's not a big deal, either or. But if none of that's true, baptism, one, is very serious. Remember Nicodemus was talking to Jesus, and he said, "What should I do to enter the kingdom of heaven?" And he said, "You must be born again, and you must get baptized." And it wasn't an option. So, of course, if an emergency happened and you turned to God and died, of course, He knows all circumstances. He can make an exception to anything He wants. But we should try to follow everything He tells us to do. Like Jesus before, people they're making their own way. And Jesus said, He said, back then they were even calling Him Master, and Lord. Lord means Master. And He said, "Why do you call me Lord, but you do not do what I say?" So, and that's what you got going on down here. Everybody in the world, like I said, so many people are professing to be Christian, and they say that like being a Republican or Democrat now. They just it sounds good to call yourself a Christian, but people aren't observing any of the standards, and they're not observing any of the things that Jesus said to. And I'm not saying everybody. There's a lot of people that are, but I'm saying the majority of people we run into now aren't. But most of them, in most people's defense, they don't know. So, they're being misled in all these institutions, and because again, everything's been subverted. All these religious institutions have been subverted from the top by evil, But just know this, if all you ever had to do was just say some little prayer, and you were good, then the Messiah would not have to, for 3.5 years, He wouldn't have been down here teaching people the changes that they have to make in their life if they wanted to get salvation at the end. He went on a teaching campaign. If all you had to do was say a prayer and you could pretty much do whatever you wanted, then the Messiah Himself could have just came down, dropped some pamphlets off, and took off. Said, "Say this prayer, don't worry about nothing else, you're good." But again, even the churches nowadays tell people, don't worry about it. If you just say this prayer, and if you sin after this, it's no big deal, and you're forgiven, and don't worry about nothing. But a sin means you've actually broken God's law. That's what a sin is breaking God's law. Like if you ran out here and you ran through a red light and you broke the law, you would be sinning against this country or this municipal. So God's laws that were set in place, if you trespass and transgressing over against them, that's a sin. And what did Jesus say to people? He would say to them, "Go and sin no more." He didn't say, just go do whatever you want. They have a standard, and they want people to turn to doing right. And again, they understand that we're fallible. There's none of us that can walk a perfect line down here. But we should be making a lot of effort. And as we learn more and more, our heart changes, and so does our desire, to do bad things. A lot of that changes too. So, the best thing to do is keep studying, and that's why it says in the scripture, "Study to show yourself approved." So, you keep studying God's word, and it remolds your mind, and it remolds your heart, and eventually, you don't want to do any of these bad things. So, but anyway, the book, probably put a link to that book I was talking about, the What the Bible Really Teaches. And because again, I mean, you don't have to agree with all of it. Just take what you can take out of it. But at the end of the day, like I said, it does lay out the Christian covenant, and it does explain a few things that are vital to understand, and it does a really good job of explaining them. So again, just I would highly recommend that each person read it. And like I said, I'm gonna try as often as I can to constantly put stuff out and explain stuff, and do my part to try to help as many people, like I said, as I can. And anyway, I guess that's it for now. So.